Hey, Soul Warriors. This is Jessica Noel, and I'm coming at you with episode 6 of my podcast, Uncovering Your Authentic Soulful Self. And today, in episode 6, we're going to be talking about suffering, compassion, allowing, and service to others. So, before we begin, I want you to take a moment to tune into your body, take a couple deep breaths. Just notice where most of your energy is. For most of us, it's going to be in our head. We're thinking, we're doing, we're busy. See if you can drop that energy down into your heart center. This way you can take this information in through your mind and also into your heart. And you can also take in the energetic frequencies or the activations that are part of this information that you're receiving today. This will help you on your transformation path. Take a couple of deep breaths in and out through your heart center. Okay, good. The first thing that I want to talk about today is something that I observed recently when I was chaperoning a group of children. And I just saw it as an analogy to some of the things that maybe we as adults can do a little bit more. So one of the activities they were doing was very wet and very messy. And so most of the children had towels and had a change of clothes that were sent with them. But some of them didn't have a towel or a change of clothes. I observed one girl who didn't have a towel or a change of clothes, and she was very wet and she was very messy and looking very uncomfortable. And she went up to another girl, and keep in mind that neither of these know each other, they're not friends. And she was showing her, I'm wet and I'm messy and I'm really uncomfortable and cold. And so what the girl did that she went up to was she grabbed her towel without even thinking, no hesitation, and she wrapped it around her and she gave her a big hug, drying her off. So as I saw this, it made me think about our lives as adults. You know, the analogy that comes to my mind is as we move forward in life, sometimes we're given tools. Maybe we're born with them, maybe we just have them. We have wisdom and we have tools and we just know how to do certain things and navigate certain things. Other times our life experiences and our challenges and our painful situations, they give us these tools. That's the wisdom that we get from them, the warm towel, the change of clothes. So what I want to ask you is there anyone in your life that's showing you that they're uncomfortable and they're going through a challenge? Or if you encounter someone like that, do you have the warm towel for them? Can you extend that love for them? Can you offer them the warm towel and a hug? So can you exchange your wisdom with them? Can you be loving and supportive and compassionate? Okay, so let's continue. I want to go back to talking about the soul warrior idea again. You know, in one of the episodes, I talked about being on the front lines, having there be blood and sweat and tears. And so when I mentioned that, what I was referring to is really at an emotional level. You know, as we're going through this process, there's an emotional, maybe energetic, sometimes spiritual level, mental level for sure. As we're going through this process, we have a lot of purification that we're doing. And I talked before about how it's like we're going the opposite direction of a lot of people, right? A lot of people are in their default mode. They're running their unconscious patterns. They don't have awareness, at least to some extent. And they're just doing what they've been taught or what's been wired into them. And so we're doing something very different. And it's not an easy, comfortable way of doing things a lot of the time because it's not what's natural to us, right? We're unraveling things that have been imprinted into us that are not in our best interest. And it's something that we have to do in order to move into our fullest potential, into our authentic self. This is part of uncovering your authentic self. But it can be really challenging, hard work. It can be very painful. It can be very challenging. And so I want to talk to you about an analogy of what that looks like. As we're doing our own work, there's something happening where we're also being of service. So as we're doing this transformation purification process, I want you to think about it like if you're on this path, and you probably are if you're listening to this, I want you to think about it like creating a pathway in the woods, in the forest. So in order to do that, someone's got to go first. Someone's got to chop all those trees down. They've got to clear all the weeds. They've got to pull them up. They've got to do all of this hard work to create a smooth path through the forest, through the trees. Some of us have agreed to do that at a soul level though, right? So we came here, that's part of our divine plan. We're going to talk more about our divine plan later on. That's part of what we're here to do. Maybe that's all of what we're here to do, or maybe that's just a piece of it. But if that's part of it for you, then you'll resonate with it. But keep in mind that that's not everybody's job, and it's probably the majority of people, that's not your job. But for some of us, we've agreed to do that. That's why we're here. Here we go. And so as we're doing that, again, it's hard work. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. It can bring us into despair and into suffering. But there's blessings afterwards, right? There's freedom. There's liberation. There's all kinds of beauty that we receive later on. In the moment, though, it's incredibly painful. So it takes an incredible amount of passion and courage and bravery to move forward doing this work. So back to the analogy of we're cutting all these trees down, we're carving this pathway through the woods. And what that means is there's this whole group of people behind us that can now walk through there smoothly, right? So yes, we're doing it for ourselves, but we're also doing it for others. So that's the way of serving, right? So we're doing it for others so that they can easily walk down that path. They don't have to do any work. They don't have to cut anything down. And they're just walking behind it. Knowing that if you're on this path and now you've heard this explanation, knowing that can really bring you some peace, and knowing that yes, you're doing it for you, but you're also doing it for humanity as well, for other people that can move through this more smoothly. This builds a passion, right? Like I said, there's a passion already instilled in there, but it's a bigger passion too once you start thinking about, wow, I'm doing this for others. Once you start seeing evidence of that, because you will start to see patterns, you'll start to see people come into your life and they're getting this like really, really fast. You know, and some of the children, so younger generations, it's like they're almost like born with it, or they're getting it like right now when they're young, and they're not gonna have to go through any of that as adults. They're already unraveling all this stuff where they're coming up with, they already know all the wisdom and everything. So it's a beautiful thing to watch evidence of this. So I want you to just think about it and just pay attention to, is that resonating with you? Are you seeing examples of that in your life? Because you need to decide for yourself how you feel like things are unfolding in your life and what your role is. But the passion that comes can be so intense that it can be about, again, with the warrior, you know, we think about that as like soldiers and things like that at a physical level. But also at this emotional, energetic level, it's like, you know, the passion that you would be willing to die for this cause. If, you know, and that's where I've come to with it. If me dying, giving up my life would mean freedom for humanity, would mean liberation, would mean the end of suffering, 100% I would do it, and I'd do it again and again and again and again. And another way of talking about that is like this suffering that you're going through. You know, and that you know that you're doing it for you, but you know you're doing it for humanity too. And you would do it again and again and again and again if it means that there's freedom for others. And that's a beautiful thing. And so see if you can embody some of that compassion, for others, from the suffering of others. Because once you know suffering and deep pain and deep despair, it builds incredible compassion in a way that you really are giving up your life. So those of us that are on this path on the front line, we've had to give up our lives in certain ways. There's certain things emotionally, energetically, and in our life situations that we do give up. There's certain three-dimensional things that they're given up. And so that's kind of like a little bit more of an abstract piece to describe, but it's essentially you are giving up your life on a certain level, and you're doing it again and again and again for a beautiful purpose. I was with somebody just the other day, and she was crying. She was in that depth of despair, and I looked at her, and I know where she was at. So if you are listening to this and you are in the depth of despair, you're in great pain, you're in great grief, I see you, I hear you, and I have some things to share with you to help you in that place. She was in there and she was crying, and something so beautiful that she said, just through the openness of her heart, the breaking open of her heart, she said, I just want to know that this is for a reason. If it's because this is going to help me to be of service to other people in the way that I'm supposed to be, in the way that I'm meant to be, and part of why I'm here, and if this is helping people right now, then that's enough for me. And I would do it again, and I keep going through it, and I go through it again and again and again. So many beautiful things took place in that session, but that's where she was at. It was time. It was time to let go. It was time to embrace that. It was time to verbalize this passion, this compassion, and this intent. So deep pain builds compassion. And I want to talk about that in the context of an analogy for you. So back to those of you that are listening to this, that are in this deep despair right now, you're in the darkness. I want to say to you a couple of things. One thing I want to say to you is that it's always darkest before the dawn. That's one way that we can talk about it. If you're in deep darkness, there's something called this passion. It's an ending, it's a death of old parts of you. It's a cracking, it's a breaking open so that the light can pour in. I want to talk about it too in the context of an analogy. If you've ever had someone, or if you're in that situation now, that has come into your life and it's like they've just covered you in darkness, covered you in dirt, or maybe it was a situation, a life experience, that can be the greatest gift that you've ever given. That person that covered you in darkness with their behaviors, that situation that covered you in darkness, the way that it unfolded, that could be your greatest gift. And here's why. Because think about it like you were a seed. You were a seed, you weren't open, you were still closed, there was potential inside, but you were a seed. And then you got covered in this dirt, in this darkness. It felt really scary. Feels really like a lot of, again, grief, despair. You don't see it until years later down the road, or until you have flourished, but you're in this darkness, and there's a breaking open at a certain point, right? The seeds break open, and then new life starts to move through the dirt. So what that feels like for you is struggling, right? You're struggling. You're trying to find the light. You're struggling. You don't know if you can take any more. And as you get right up to the surface, right before you break through the surface of the dirt, so that you can then see the sun, see the light, that can be the hardest moment. That could be a moment where maybe your prayers are like, you gotta lift this for me, or you gotta take me out. I can't do this anymore. You know, are you at that place where you just don't feel like you can take it anymore? That's right before you pop through. So I want to give you that hope, because it's true. If you're covered in darkness and you're struggling, The light is there and you're just about to pop through it. And then you are becoming what you're meant to be. You're moving towards your fullest potential. You're in your becoming right now. You can do this. It's making you stronger. Seek support. Seek people who understand. Do things that help you feel just a little bit better. You can do this. So at the darkest hour, right before you pop through that dirt, at the darkest hour, the light pours in and you changed, right? You're changed forever. Another way of saying that is that it's like you're giving up in a way. If you're in this place right now, you're giving up your three-dimensional consciousness. There's a certain three-dimensional consciousness that's the patterns, it's the conditioning, it's limiting you, it's blocking you from your fullest potential. There's a death of that that's taking place. And you're moving into remembering your purpose, why you're here in your divine plan. It's a really important process that you're in right now. So when you think about your divine plan, thinking about what did you come here to do? A lot of us have forgotten what we came here to do. What you can do is, you're not going to have that awareness until it's time. So let go, don't try, don't be efforting or trying. You can pray for the awareness. You can pray for the remembrance of, what did I come here to do? What's my divine plan? And then you have to listen for it. You have to pay attention, because you will be guided to it. You will go through things that will transform you. You will be guided towards your divine plan and towards the people and the situations that are part of it. Another thing that can help with this is saying a specific affirmation. You can make your own affirmation, or if you're interested in me giving you one, send me a message and I'll give you a specific affirmation. Because if you say this every day, it starts to ingrain it in you. You start to believe that this is really what's happening, and it starts to not only have an energetic effect and really make it real and make it happening, manifested in your life, in other words, but it's also ingraining it into your subconscious and conscious mind that this is what we're doing, this is what's happening, I can trust this, and so it's changing your beliefs. So you could make one up, you could create your own. Basically, the elements of it need to be that you now release everything and everybody. So here's what you would say: I now release everything and everybody who no longer is part of my divine plan. Everything and everybody who is no longer part of my divine plan now release me. And then being willing to let that go. And then asking for everything and everybody who is part of your divine plan, welcome that into your life. So those are the elements, but I can give you a full affirmation that I recently received from another person several months ago who said, yes, please share it. So if you want something very specific, please message me and I'll give that to you. But those are the elements. So you can create your own, that's fine. It just helps to ingrain that in you. Helps you to move through life without as many distractions. You're kind of going the airplane route rather than, horse and buggy or walking. The other thing that can happen is you're readying yourself for an imperfect world. So as you're working on yourself and as you're coming to embrace your, strengths, and you're seeing the things that you need to transform and to heal, it starts to build a compassion within you for, yes, yourself, but also for others. And so it's not making it so that you have to live in a perfect world because now you're perfect, or you have to have a perfect mate because now you're perfect and you're whole and everything's good, and so they need to be the same way. It's that you're preparing yourself for an imperfect mate. So let's go with that particular example. So you're preparing yourself for an imperfect partner. None of us are perfect, even if we move through enlightenment or a certain level of realization. We're not perfect. We're supposed to grow and heal and evolve together. That's why we form partnerships. So it's about preparing you, this alchemy of life, some of these painful experiences, this compassion that's growing in you, this wisdom, preparing you for an imperfect mate. so that you can move through that easily and effortlessly, and the two of you can grow and evolve together. The same is true with an imperfect job, an imperfect life situation, imperfect financial situation, whatever it is. You're able to handle that in a different way once you have this level of compassion, and it moves you toward what we spoke about last week, unconditional love. In the last podcast, the last episode, we talked about unconditional love. So this deep compassion moves you towards that, helps you to embody and to express this unconditional love. You're loving all parts of this imperfect partner. You're able to know. You're able to love imperfect situations and imperfect world. I want to help you discern something. When we talk about grief and pain, sometimes we have this higher perspective, and some of us that are thinkers and we have, some wisdom that we've acquired along the way, this can actually start to become a barrier. So I want to make you aware of it, but it happens for everybody to some extent. So let's say that we have this high wisdom about a situation. Like, yes, we know that this is not the right way to think about it, that this is really what's happening, like at a spiritual level, at a higher perspective, this is what's going on, so I shouldn't feel this way about it. But here's the thing, you have an emotion there too. So you can't ignore your emotion and bypass it, because it's going to sit there and it's going to get stored. And you're going to have to release it later on. And so, yes, you have this higher perspective, and yes, that's accurate. Yes, that's what's going on. But don't forget that there's an emotional part of you that feels a different way. Maybe you've got two parts of you going on. Maybe this part of you has a little tiny touch of not feeling worthy and feeling lonely or something else. And that needs to be released and processed out. That's something that you go through. And then this other perspective, yes, that's true, but you're in two places. So honor them both. Let yourself feel the emotion, even if you know that it's not quite accurate. Let yourself move it through. Cry, yell, sit with it. Then all of you can move to the high perspective, okay? So you don't want to just leave it like that. You got to process the emotion, and then you move to the high perspective. Moving to the higher perspective can be really helpful, so that you don't get caught in a situation where you're stuck in a grief or in a pain. You're stuck in a low vibration emotion, which, all emotions have purposes and they all have different vibrations. It's more about, like, are you stuck in it? So you want to allow things to process through and move to the higher perspective while honoring your emotions. I also want to tell you and talk to you about the way that suffering is magnified by the mind. So, the mind, as we've talked before about, is very, very powerful. So suffering can be magnified and intensified in ways that are not necessary. Sometimes we do have to go through suffering. It is necessary to some extent. But the thing that isn't necessary is the magnification. So as we focus on things, remember that what we focus on, grows and expands. And then so we're going to want to discard certain things and sort of minimize them. It's not about, minimize has a little bit of a negative context, but what I mean is we're just not focusing on them. Yes, we're aware of it, but we're moving on and we're focusing on what we want to create in life, and we're focusing on the positive, right? So if you are in suffering, if you're in pain, don't pick at it, is another way of talking about this. We talked about this at my group the other day. Anytime that you have like a blemish on your skin or a scab or something like that, sometimes there's a desire to pick at it. You don't want it there, so you want to pick at it. Is that ever a good idea? Pretty much it's not, right? Like, it's going to make it worse. It's going to get inflamed. It's going to get infected. The whole thing is going to happen. It's going to scar up. Oh my gosh. So it makes it so much worse to pick at it. So let's say a trigger comes up. Let's say some suffering comes up. You're having emotional pain. Acknowledge it, allow it to process through, be aware of it, but don't overly focus on it. Don't get in there and start, doing extra picking at it types of things. Just be aware of it, sit with it, allow it, and then focus on other positive things and other wisdom, and just move through it. Oh, it's like a little bit of a flow. Just move through it like that. And I want to talk to you about sacrificing, bringing blessings. Earlier we talked about the soul warrior being on the front lines, how that can be really challenging for yourself. You're doing it for you, you're doing it for others too. This type of sacrifice brings beautiful blessings. You start to receive certain gifts that will just unfold within you. And some of that can be compassion and love for others. Some of it can look like spiritual gifts that start to activate. Some of it can be cities, which are, seemingly magical qualities. Once you're leaving the 3D consciousness and you're embracing more towards your fuller potential, your soul self, your authentic self, some things that are seemingly supernatural or above the norm can start to manifest within you. And it's always here for you to be of service to others. It's always offered to you for that reason. So these are examples of some of the blessings, and maybe it's abundance. Maybe things start getting effortless. Maybe you start getting more money. Maybe you're guided to situations that make you more happy and fulfilled. It really depends on your life path, your divine purpose, what these blessings look like. And maybe it's all of the above, and I hope that it is for you. But keep in mind that these sacrifices that you might be making and the suffering that you're going through, they lead to liberation, they lead to freedom, they end many elements of your suffering. And I want to say to you, like, think about times maybe years ago where something used to bother you, it used to really hurt you, it used to make you angry. And now you can encounter that same situation and you don't have the anger, you don't have the triggers, it doesn't bother you anymore. That's one small example of a blessing of this path, right? And so there's bigger ones. Keep going forward. You're going to get more blessings. You're going to receive more. That being said, there's also times where you might feel like you're giving some more, and you're receiving nothing. That can happen. There can be moments of that. Stay focused on what you're here for. You're here for service. And then you're going to have to just pay somebody to give to you. So what I mean by that is, pay somebody to give to you. You need to receive. So if people in your life are not giving to you, and if it's not about discerning, maybe they're not meant to be in your life, if it's just more like that's not happening naturally, you really are always responsible anyway for your own receiving, right? But you do need to receive. There does need to be a balance. And sometimes in our life, there's periods where it just gets out of balance. Maybe we're single, we're alone, we don't interact with a lot of people, and that's fine. Or maybe the people in our lives are just, it's just in that kind of ebb and flow place where there's not a lot of receiving. Well, then pay people to give to you, meaning massage, pedicures, getting some energy healing, doing some restorative yoga, whatever it is, and whatever types of receiving, anything that's filling up your cup and making you feel rejuvenated, restored, and like you've received, you've got to do that. Especially if you're in a role of service, you have to fill your own cup, and you're the one that's responsible for that. You're not meant to be, oh, you need to fill my need, you need to do this, you need to do that. You can make requests of people at times. For the most part, you need to make sure that you find ways to restore, to rejuvenate, and to fill your own cup. Okay. So sometimes that looks like seeking it out, through some of these modalities and these services that you can receive for yourself. Last section I want to talk about is allowing things to flow and to come to you. So I want to give you another analogy about this. So let's envision that we're flowing down, we're in a river and there's a flow to it, right? There's a current and we're flowing down the river, It's really pretty effortless. We don't have to swim. We're just in there. The current's taking us, right? So this is your life path. Life is already taking you where you're supposed to go. Say it again. Life is already taking you where you're supposed to go. And so the question is, are you going willingly? Because you're going to go anyway. Or are you holding on to tree branches and you're swimming upstream and you're trying to find a way out of the river, or, whatever it is that you're doing? Are you resisting? You don't need to do that. It's like working against what's already happening. So if you can let go and just let things unfold, the river, things will be placed in this river when you need them. People will be placed in the river when you need to float alongside them. Situations will come about. It will come to you. So how can you let go of holding onto that tree branch and just let yourself flow? How can you just allow things to take place? How can you just give up the effort and the struggle? Just give it up. You can do this. Let go. I surrender. I give up the struggle. I'm ready to flow with life. I'm ready to go where life leads me. I'm ready to allow my divine plan to unfold and everything that entails. You can do this. And so things will come to you, and you can have a moment. We did this at my group the other day. You can have a moment where you have a communication with the universe, with God, with your guides, with angels, whatever that looks like for you, whatever words you use, where you say, okay, you know what, this is my moment. Mark it on your calendar. This is my moment where I surrender to the divine plan of my life. This is the moment where I stop efforting, where I stop trying to get things to be a certain way, where I stop trying to control outcomes, control what people want to do, where you stop trying to chase after things. Are you chasing after somebody? Are you chasing after a situation? That's not going to be fruitful for you. That might not be part of your divine plan. And if it is, that person will come to you. That situation will come to you. It'll circle back. Maybe it's about you learning to stop chasing first. When you want something really bad, or you feel a strong connection to it, or you really, the job situation is really appealing, or whatever it is, maybe it's a new house you're wanting to buy. It's really appealing. And so you want to chase after it. You want to try, you want effort. And I understand that. That's how it feels, right? It's not the way. It's about letting go. You'll know, you'll be guided to take an action. You'll know if you need to move forward and pursue it to some extent. But don't chase and don't effort. Let it come to you. So have this communication, and again, mark your calendar. This is the day that I stop efforting. This is the day that I stop chasing after things. This is the day that I'm asking you, universe, God, angels, spirit guides, I ask you to bring it all to me. I'm letting you bring it to me. I'm letting it all come to me. I no longer effort. I no longer chase. I no longer pursue. It's got to come to me, or I'm not doing it. Okay? So this is going to be a really good practice for you. I feel like a marker is going to really be helpful. I want to give you an example of this. Four-leaf clovers, I looked it up. They are 1 in 10,000. So you would have to look through at least, probably more, right? At least 10,000 clovers to be able to find a four-leaf clover. So that could take a very long time to search for. I get out of my car. Typically, I go in through a certain door of my house. And for some reason, I wasn't thinking about anything. I just got out of the car and I walked right up to the front door. And I said to my son, hey, I bet you that we can find a four-leaf clover. I looked down immediately, and I seriously have my eyes on a four-leaf clover right at that moment. So I bend over and I pick it, and indeed it is a four-leaf clover. So my point in saying that is, if you're supposed to encounter a new person in your life, if you're supposed to encounter a new situation, it's going to be effortless. You're going to be guided right to it. It's going to come to you, or you're going to be guided right to it inadvertently. So I wasn't thinking, oh, today is the four-leaf clover day, or I'm hearing a message that I need to go and find a four-leaf clover. It was just very natural. It's going to be very natural. You might not even know, like, why am I going to this place? Or you might not know that this is the place you're going to meet someone really special, or that, you're applying, you're looking on this particular site, or you see a sign for a job, whatever it is. So you're going to be guided to it, even if it's extremely rare. So I want to talk about, like, if you have this type of situation, you're going to know. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, there's something special there. That's a special connection. Or, oh my gosh, that's the job I've been looking for. There's going to be a feeling there. There's going to be a feeling of it's special. There's something to pay attention to here. But I also want to talk to you about caution. Sometimes we, through our life experiences, our painful situations, we talked last time about heart walls come up. With heart walls come caution. What's caution? Fear. Caution is fear. It's fear. It's important to be discerning and full of care. But if you're being cautious, then ask yourself if there's some fear in there, because I think there is. Most certainly there's some sort of fear if you're being cautious. So be full of care, be discerning, but don't be cautious or fearful, because that's what that is, right? You want to eliminate the fear. That four-leaf clover, what if I picked that four-leaf clover and I was like, oh, I'm just going to throw it away? It came to you for a reason. You were guided to it for a reason. What are you doing? Why are you walking away from that? Why aren't you embracing that? sometimes we don't embrace things because we feel like, well, I'm just not ready, or maybe it's not the right timing. I feel all this, I feel this resonance with the situation, this person, but I'm not ready. It's not the right time. I need to do this. No, you don't. If it came to you and it was guided and you can feel the resonance of it, it's there for a reason. So don't throw away the 4-leaf clover because you're trying to control it by choosing your timing, or you're trying to do something first. If it came to you, it's divine timing. It's not going to show up if it's not the right time. Okay? So if it shows up, it's divine timing. And if you're not where you thought you'd be when you meet this special person, if you're not where you thought you'd be when this job opportunity comes, maybe you're supposed to learn and grow with that job opportunity. Maybe you're supposed to learn and grow with that person right where you are. Maybe things will be a lot easier if you guys do this together. Maybe things will be a lot easier if you have this job right now. So there's a lot of things you might not know about. Why is it that it came right now? Why is it that it's not quite how you expected? Or why is it that you didn't want it again? And here it is, You just have to trust divine timing, and that things that are guided are there for a reason, and they're for your highest good. And yeah, it can be risky. It could end in pain. Of course it could. Let's talk about it in the context of love relationships, because I think this is really common. It could end in pain. This person comes into your life, this 4-leaf clover, that's 1 in 10,000, 1 in a million. It's probably more like 1 in a million. And there's resonance there. Everybody can feel it. You sense something like that. But you've been hurt. You've not been hurt. You've been devastated. You've had deep pain. It's cracked you open. It's brought you to places where you don't ever want to go again. You're afraid. Yeah, you're not alone. That happens for many of us, right? Maybe you're not done healing. Maybe you have some more healing to do. And that's understandable too. But the thing is that even though we don't know, it is an unknown. We don't know what the outcome is. I want you to march into it, warrior. March into it. Because it's there for a reason. And if it brings pain, then you got to embrace that too. Because that's there for you too. Pain is transformation. Pain will bring you closer to your fuller potential. But it might not be pain. It might be love. It might be everything that you've been wanting. It might be bliss. It might be a perfect union. Right? And so this applies to everything. This is not just about a love relationship, just using that as an example. But I want you to march into it. If it's there and you know that it's guided, but you know that it's fear that's holding you back, you're being too cautious because you're fearful and you're afraid of what this looks like and you don't know where it's headed. I want you to drop that and march into it. It's here for you. Okay, the last piece is simply about entrainment and service energetically. So as we purify, as we do our own inner work, as we unravel these patterns that we have ingrained in us, something that happens is our energy field changes, and our energy fields hold the energetic information of the experiences that we've had. They hold the wisdom of our transformation. So at a quantum level, at a particle level, and science hasn't really discovered this, but there are certain things that they have discovered, like quantum entanglement and other things that have been proven that can lend some credibility to this at a scientific level. But keep in mind that science is typically behind what some people can experience intuitively and are already working with. Then science catches up. And same thing with the psychology field. People start doing certain, processes, certain therapies and certain techniques, and then later they become evidence-based, right? Because now, they're effective and now we've tested it. So there's a process to this. So there's particles in your energy field that are holding information. It's all tons of information about your experiences, about your traumas, about all kinds of things. As you overcome certain things and as you unravel certain patterns and conditioning and programming, what happens is your frequency raises, your vibration raises, which is a measurable thing. And also you have new information now in your energy field. So when you're sitting with another person or a group of people, you are exchanging this information silently with each other. So there's this exchange taking place with your energy fields. You're receiving information from them for experiences they have gone through, that they've overcome, and that they've grabbed the highest wisdom from, or that they've integrated the highest wisdom from. And you're doing the same for them. So if I've gone through a really challenging situation and I've gained the highest wisdom from it, I've come out the other side of it, and I'm sitting with someone who is now in that situation where they're in the part of it where it's painful and they don't have the highest wisdom yet, I'm offering that to them. So what's going to happen? They're going to get to it a lot faster. And maybe it's something that's coming up for them, and I've offered it to them in advance, or they've offered it to me in advance, and then that's it. So it's no process they have to go through anymore because it's already there. They've already received that information right beforehand. So we're always exchanging information energetically with each other. And so that's one way that you're being of service, just by being present, is that you're giving this information of the highest wisdom, of the things that you've uncovered and you've learned in your life, to others just by being present. But the other thing that's happening is entrainment, where as your frequency, your vibration raises, people entrained to the highest frequency and vibration are going to follow that, and it's going to transform them. So high vibrations, high frequencies are transformative. So you could talk about this in terms of, like, let's say that somebody with a high frequency, high vibration starts to go to a certain place over and over. Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a, some sort of center or something. It's interesting because you can start to see people in that, the other people that are frequenting the same environment. You start to see an energy change in the environment itself and in the people. They start to be lighter, they start to be happier. And so you, if you have this high frequency, high vibration, you're serving just by going there. It's changing the energy of the environment, because again, this entrainment happens where it entrains to the highest frequency, highest vibration, and then the things that are low vibration will start to fall away or dissolve. So it makes it a lot easier for that person to just start effortlessly shedding things, and therefore their frequency, their vibration raises because they're entraining to yours. Okay. So entrainment, this happens across the board. It happens in relationships too. If you have a high frequency, high vibration, you're balanced, your partner can entrain to you, and they can just start effortlessly shedding these things. So it kind of goes back to this idea of what we talked about. You're forging a path in the woods. People are entraining behind you. So at a collective level, so now we just talked about people you're interacting with physically. At a collective level, we are all connected to each other, to humanity as a collective. In the way that I'm shown that, it looks like an energetic nervous system that connects all of us. Information moves through that energetic nervous system through each of us. So it's information that is from the highest wisdoms that we've accumulated from our life experiences. It's also high vibration frequencies that are moving through. So the higher vibration you become, therefore the more, or in other words, the more purified that you become, you're emitting this frequency, this information through the collective. So therefore you're serving all of humanity just by doing your process. Just by transforming yourself and purifying yourself, you're serving all of humanity through that collective, through the energy that's moving through the collective. So if all you do is change yourself, you do nothing outwardly in terms of like your behaviors or your business or your service work, if all you do is your own inner work, your own purification, you can literally change the collective and be of service and be powerfully influential just by that alone. What a beautiful thing. Okay. So that wraps up episode 6. I so have enjoyed connecting with you. Let's take a moment to do a couple breaths together. Just close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths. See if you can feel a flow of energy moving through your body. Can you allow yourself to let go just a little bit more? Trust the flow of life, what life brings to you, where you're at. Can you move toward more compassion, unconditional love? Allow yourself to move into ease and just let things come to you. Feel the peace. I have so enjoyed connecting with you today, and I will look forward to the next time. Bye for now.